All right, class, is our last boards here for Unit 2. Topic, once again, organization, reorganization, the human society, 600 BCE to 600 CE. All right, so it's your question, how did the classical empires succumb to outside pressures and eventually collapse? So, before we talk about that, let's talk about the Mesoamerica, in particular the Maya. So, the Maya were contemporary with the Romans, the Han, and the Gupta, even though they usually get grouped in with the Aztecs or the Incas. And there's a lot of similarities between the Mayas, the Aztecs, and the Incas, and I think that's why oftentimes they're grouped together. But from 300 BCE to around 800 CE, the Maya dominated much of Central America. The Maya were city-states, but ruled by the same king. Like the Egyptians, they created pyramids, hieroglyphics. The golden age of the Maya was between 500 CE and 800 CE. The Maya had great works of scholarship, complex calendar, great architecture planning. Tikal in northern Guatemala was a city of more than 100,000. I've actually been to Tikal on numerous occasions, and it is quite a large area. And to think that 100,000 people lived in this really large, expansive jungle area is pretty impressive. Polytheistic, the Maya were a polytheistic religion. They believed in the heavens above, the humans in the middle, in the Middle Earth or whatever, and an underworld. They believed that gods maintained proper agricultural cycles in exchange for honors or sacrifices. So you can see where this is leading to. Warfare often carried some sort of religious significance. Often war wasn't about land, but about acquiring slaves for building projects like the giant pyramids, agriculture for the corn and the cotton that they grew, and or for sacrifices to the gods to make sure that the rains will come for the corn. Most people were peasants with a smaller elite nobility. The Maya raised corn and cotton. Many well-preserved ruins still exist today, and like I said, many of those are in Guatemala. I've been to Honduras. There's one in several in Mexico, Chichen Itza. So, let's talk about the collapse of the classical empires. Most of the classical empires began to decline around 400 CE. The Maya collapse is still a mystery, but many believe the populations got too large, and there was drought, which meant lack of food. So when you put those two together, they had a lot of problems. By the 9th century, the great cities were left behind, and I say for the jungle because literally the jungle just came and took them over, and they're still uncovering temples even to this day. Now in Han China, the Han Empire was so large, it forced people into the army, conscription, which they didn't like, plus large taxes left people very unhappy with the Han rulership. There were many famines, terrible floods, especially along the Yellow River. This fueled peasant uprisings. In 220 CE, the Han dynasty collapsed. And for about 300 or 400 years after this time period, there wasn't one dominant main dynasty that ruled China. So after this time period, it was a little bit more tumultuous in China. All right, the Gupta Empire in India. The Gupta fell for one simple reason: the invasion of the White Huns. The Huns kept Hinduism and the social structure, but the Gupta Empire in India ended in about 550 CE. And now let's talk about the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The sheer size of the Roman Empire became too hard to control in the late 300s. The empire split between the East and the West. Constantine takes control in 322 and moves the capital from Rome to present-day Turkey, and he would name the capital after himself, Constantinople, but it would eventually be renamed into Istanbul. The Roman Empire felt pressure from all sides, with the empires bearing down on Rome. The Sassanid Persians from Iran united under Zoroastrian religion and defeated the Romans in numerous battles in the Eastern Mediterranean, talking about Egypt and Iraq, and maybe not as far as Iraq, like Syria, the Eastern Mediterranean. The Romans felt most of the pressure, though, from the Germanic tribes from the north. The Visigoths and Attila the Hun sacked Rome in 410 CE, and by 476, the western half of the Roman Empire had fallen. The eastern half survived, and it would eventually become the Byzantine Empire, which would go on to rule for quite some time until finally the Ottomans took over in, I believe, around the 1400s. Trade throughout the world, the Silk Road especially began to spread culture, technology, and religion. So when we're talking about Eurasia, North Africa, there was few places that were not affected by the Chinese sending things to the east or the Romans sending things to the west. They all started to become intertwined. All right, remember, history is no mystery. Take good notes.